So one thing to notice in this image though, and in the White Lotus image, they put a line through it, but if you look at the original, you've got the giant here, or the yak, actually grabbing this black guy's penis and pulling it out and handing it to the crocodile, probably to bite off. And so perhaps there's significance there as well. Will somebody literally have their penis handed to a crocodile, or is this a metaphor? Let's wait and see. I've put Mike White as the creator in here because it's really interesting that they've chosen him to put in juxtaposition with this image. Now this is taken from here, but this is made much whiter, grayer, and you've got these shadows of the deadi, the stupas over him again. So maybe he is the one who sort of floated out and found his redemption or his solace, his safety away from everything. So maybe the creator has actually woven himself into the White Lotus story. And you can see in the original image here, he's actually near the palace, near the kingdom, but here it looks like he's all alone at sea. But then finally, you see Buaka and it's fallen. And there's one really interesting difference here. I'll give you 3 seconds to spot it. 1, 2, 3. Now, in order to really understand this, you need to sort of switch Western mode to Thai mode or Eastern mode. You need to use a Thai operating system for your mind. Now, this image, I've got a gut feeling, is critical to everything that's going on. I really wonder how much depth of knowledge they have into all of these images. It'd be interesting to hear their breakdown of why they put these together. The White Lotus Season 3. What if I told you that the White Lotus Season 3, set in Thailand, reveals the entire plotline, including characters, in the initial mural sequence in the opening, in the intro of the program? Remember in Squid Games, if you watched it, the final scenes when we realized all along the entire Squid Game story was actually drawn out on the walls around where everybody was staying. Last week I put a clip out when I went through the murals and I talked about the symbolism, understanding the Buddhist background, the Hindu background, Sanskrit, Pali, and the Thai languages. I tried to piece together the symbolism of each image there. But then what happened was amazing. I had people reaching out to me from everywhere, and thank you to those people, in particular Andrew. The resources that you sent through were amazing. And so what I've done today is I've spent the past week researching, and some people have actually gone to the different temples and pieced together each piece of art that has actually gone to make up the murals that we see in that montage sequence of the White Lotus. And what we get is mind-blowing. What I've found in studying the images and comparing them side by side, which is what you see behind me here, actually, you can see the original image and you can see the White Lotus montage image. You will see what they've left out in the White Lotus montage or what they've swapped in to the original stories will actually have significance and tell the story. Now, I actually don't know what's going to happen in the White Lotus. We've only just seen episode 2 last week. Episode 3 kicks in this Monday in Thailand. So I don't know how much I'm about to say will actually come true. Special credit here to the Facebook page Silapa Watanatam, which is the page that actually put all of these real images together, contrasting with the White Lotus images. So I've used their influence as well as other images that I've picked up from my readings as well, different PDFs and different studies on these two temples in particular, Wat Sutat and Wat Suwanaram, where they've taken these images and I'm going to be able to present them to you now in whole. Now, in order to really understand this, you need to sort of switch Western mode to Thai mode or Eastern mode. You need to use a Thai operating system for your mind. And in fact, if you really do want to lay down a Thai operating system for your mind, I actually wrote the book, Cracking Thai Fundamentals, a Thai operating system for your mind. I put this together because a lot of Westerners, when they're looking at the Thai language, they try and learn it like a Western language, and you just can't. You need to start to think using a Thai operating system, just like you're going to be looking at these images. So even if you're not learning the language, grab a copy of Cracking Thai Fundamentals because it's full of these cultural understandings and understandings of how things fit together in this Thai operating system. Actually, a lot of what I have in there stands true for a lot of the cultures across Southeast Asia too. So grab a copy of Cracking Thai Fundamentals to really, really understand this stuff. But let's jump into it now. So here I actually have the final scene, and you can see it's this very rich red color here. And you can see this, it looks like a king sitting in here. Now you've got to understand that these murals from Wat Sutat and Wat Suwanaram, they're telling the stories of what we call Jataka. So I'm just pulling up this tool here that I built. It's at crackinglanguage.com, totally free. You can jump in. So this is the word Jataka. In Sanskrit, you would say it Jataka, but in Thai, we call it Chadok, okay? Chadok. So when you see a number 1 here, it just means the lowest part of your voice. So that would be dok. That's because Thai is a tonal languages. So the tone or the pitch level and the nature of your voice will actually change the meaning of the word. And so what are Jataka or Chadok? These are the stories of the past incarnations of the Buddha that finally reached enlightenment. Now, somebody who is on the search or on the path to enlightenment is called a bodhisattva, or we call it bodhisat in Thai. So these stories in the Jataka are the different reincarnations of the bodhisattva en route to enlightenment. So if we come back here, we can see here that very often the king of whatever time it was or whatever story it was is put in place or thought of as the bodhisattva as well. So they are the ones that are en route to enlightenment in this cycle here. So there are 4 key Jatakas or Chadok that are covered in these 2 temples, Wat Sutat and Wat Suwanaram. They're the Nemi Ra Chadok. So that was Prince Nemi, and he got to visit heaven and hell and see what went on there to bring enlightenment. And you'll see imagery of that linked to the White Lotus. The next one is the Puritat Chadok or the Buridatta. This is about the power of the serpent and having to restrain oneself to reach enlightenment. So you'll see the serpent come up many times in this. So just keep that in mind. The next one is the Vitura or the Vidura Jataka or the Vitura Chadok. Now, this was a minister who used his wisdom and his wit in order to fool the green giant, who could be good, could be bad, but lost a gambling debt to the Queen of Hell. And so it's a battle of wisdom against this giant, and finally wisdom wins out and gets the giant, whose name is Punaka, to finally come onto his side. So through wisdom and convincing this giant of real virtue, he was able to win him over and finally get him on his side rather than the giant Punaka taking the Queen of Hell's side. So understanding those 4 Jataka or Chadok are really important to understand this. You've got the Nemi Jataka, the Puritata Jataka, the Vidura or Vitun Jataka, and then finally you have the Vesantara or Vesandon Jataka, these 4 stories. And I'll just say, if we zoom in here, you can see this is the White Lotus version, and this is the original. Now here you can see the king sitting on the throne. Everything is symmetrical and everything is in harmony. Okay, so this is the beginning and the end. That's the full cycle. Here we see 3 images have been put together. Now, in the first one, I talked about how elephants are auspicious animals, and we have these elephants here. These originally came from 3 images from Wat Sutat. So elephants are not only auspicious, but they're also vehicles of war. If you have a look down here, you can see these almost like nymph-like creatures. They're probably kinari. They're humans in the shape of birds. You also see this lotus pond. Now, this is called the White Lotus. In these Jatakas or Chadok, you can see that King Vesandon or Prince Vesandon was ready to give his children away, and the kids knew. They ran to the lotus pond, and the lotus pond was seen as a place of refuge. And so here you will always see the lotus pond here. Think of that as a place of refuge or protection. So zooming into this section here, this is the original. Now it's interesting that they swapped the position of the skinari and they're looking in the other direction. It looks like they've just flipped it on this axis. And you can see that one of them has like breasts like this. This other one almost looks like a guy. These bird-like goddesses symbolize music, illusion, the arts, and you can see that they're just perched there watching everything going on. No matter how chaotic, they're just staying out of it, looking down. Now, here we have the first person coming into the credits. It's Kate, Leslie Bibb. Now, it's interesting. I'm trying to think which one she is because it zooms in on the elephants first. And so you know that there are three friends. And so maybe they're the three elephants and she's referring to one of them. And it looks like this one is almost like the child, or it could be the outcast. You notice that there's the one alpha lady there and the two. Kate is one of the two others. So maybe she and her friend there are these two kinari sort of sitting back watching the real show happen. I'm not sure which one, whether it's the elephants or the kinari, or maybe it's a bit of both. But I think this must have something to do with Kate or Leslie Bibb. And so here you see Carrie Coon or Laurie. So she's the other friend with Kate. And again, it's emphasizing these two sitting here. So I've got a feeling that Carrie Coon and Leslie Bibb are these two kinari sitting on watching. Now this is almost like a chang phuak. Now you can see the original one here, the elephant isn't that white, but it's made much lighter here and it's coming under attack from these hound-like creatures. So it's almost like Laurie and Kate are sitting on watching from afar while this major one, the alpha, the one that really has value, which kind of makes sense if you look at the storyline, is under attack, and an attack on her life or something that is life-threatening. So I predict that something life-threatening may come upon their friend here, who is represented by the elephant here. And here is a much lighter elephant who is being cast out into the woods to the dogs. Now in this next image here, we have two images from Wat Sutat that's put together. You've got this leopard ready to pounce on the deer. And remember, the deer are seen as weak, innocent, nice, but they're also used in the Ramakien or the Ramayana to fool Rama's wife to come out so he could kidnap her. So there's symbolism in the deers here, but generally if you're out in the woods like this, it's basically saying there's a whole lot of innocent things or people here, and there's a predator there ready to pounce. Now we have this next image. It's made up of these two images. You can see this one here and this here are very, very similar. They've got the people sitting in the sala, all these people sitting by. It's interesting to see if anything was left out of there. Now, up in the back here, you have these towers which play a role, but generally when you see the kingdom, it means everything is in harmony. People are sitting there, they're not running, screaming, so everything is at peace at the moment. Now, next, we have Walter Goggins, whose character, Richard Hatchett, is introduced. Now, we don't know his role here, but have a look at this. This is really fascinating. Let's look at the White Lotus image. Okay, so we've got this guy in the tower. It looks like he's smoking. He's alone. There's darkness out here. And right here, it looks like there's eyes peering over something in the darkness. Now, it's really important to see what the difference is between this image and the original. Have a look at the original image. There's actually lightness outside. Here it's dark. You don't have this person peering in the original. So that means that then somebody outside is peering in. Now, whether that's Walter Goggins' character, Rick Hatchett, peering in, or whether he's the one peering out, looking for whatever it is that he's looking for, I'm not sure which one. But the other thing is, look, you've got two people here sitting down. It looks like they're smoking as well. Here you only have one. So I'm torn. I don't know if he's the one that's peering in or he's here sitting, watching out for something. Maybe he's the one sitting within the White Lotus looking out for something that he's ready to attack. Let's wait and see. Now this next image, again, we need to see what is missing or what is different. And so you can see this original from Wat Sutat. It almost looks identical. However, you have this lady here leaning and looking out. And then you've got this person in here. So I don't know who this person would be. This person is here obviously having a great time with all of these ladies lying around him and these ones out here, but they've added an extra lady in here. Who is that? Maybe it's in reference to the owner of the White Lotus. What was her name? Sitala or Sitara. So let's wait and see what happens. The other thing to notice here is here it's quite clean, but here you have this shadow of the dedi, of the stupa, shadowing over. So whatever the stupa or the dedi is representing, that definitely has significance here, and it's casting a shadow over all of them while she is looking out. This image here is taken from Watsutat, and you can see it's almost identical. Even the lighting outside, the darkness here is almost identical. And so this is somebody coming up, and there is a rendezvous with this person onlooking. I think this person here may be representative of Kate looking on to these two down here. We have to wait and see. Now this next image, remember in the first episode, and somebody saw a monitor lizard, which we have a lot of here in Bangkok. They said it's okay, they won't hurt you. But here, the serpent or the monitor lizard is being let into the White Lotus by this person. So this has been a composite image between an image from Watsutat of this guy walking out with the umbrella, and then another image from Wat Suwanaram. And you can see this is the hermit here, and I'm suspecting maybe this hermit is Chuchok, I'm not sure, but they're allowing this serpent or monitor lizard in, which the original doesn't have. So this definitely has significance, showing that maybe there is treachery from within, where somebody has left the door open so that the bad guys can come in. Now this image, I've got a gut feeling, is critical to everything that's going on. So this is coming from the Vesantara or Wesandon, Jataka or Chadok. You can see the original here. This is Vesantara in here, and you can see down the bottom you have Chuchok, which was in shape of the hermit. And he's there to look in this old feeble form to try and fool him to give away his children. Now, this is another image, not from Wat Suwanaram, but from Watsutat. This guy here leaning back on the pillow, and he's been put in place of where Wesandon used to be. So this guy obviously is important. And then you have Chuchok here coming out to fool him or to get him into a really bad deal. And the only way that he's going to win in the end is for him to be virtuous. Otherwise, he's going to lose everything. And what really happened is Wesandon lost his children. Finally, Chuchok was able to take the kids, and it was only in the end that everything recapitulated and came back in harmony. And so rather than Chuchok here, you have this guy here sneaking. So there are parallels with this guy and Chuchok, and this guy and Wesandon or Wesantara. So let's wait and see, but I'm thinking this is going to be a critical image to the storyline. And so here we have two images from Wat Suwanaram that have been put together basically to show the kingdom at peace before all hell breaks loose. And you can see them put in here, and you've got these guardians here as well. And remember I mentioned you've got Hanuman. Hanuman is the brave, mighty warrior, the monkey warrior who has magic skills. He can do tricks, he can fly, he's a master of illusion, he can shrink himself down, but he is usually the hero. Well, he is the hero. So whenever you see Hanuman, think of good. And so I wonder who Hanuman's going to be in this one to protect the city. And it's really interesting looking at the detail in this image. So see this sala down here? You've got it, but here you've got some extra people in there. They've taken a person out, and you've got these two people here, which we see later on is Kunmuk or Lisa. So all the people we see here within the bounds of the city or the palace are probably different characters within this season of the White Lotus. Now we have another person introduced here. That's Piper Ratliff, played by Sarah Catherine Hook. And you can see she is out there meditating outside of everything, and you have a peacock up here. Now I couldn't find an image that represented that, and I think that's even maybe an owl out there, but it shows that like the Buddha, she sought refuge outside of it all in meditation. This search for enlightenment and detachment. This principle of detachment we call vivek or viveka, being detached from worldly things. This is really interesting here. You remember how I said that in the Nemi Raja Jataka, so Prince Nemi, when he went and visited hell, one of the punishments in hell are these trees. They're called tonmeet, the knife trees, and they had knives and spikes. And you can see down here in the original from Watsutat, you have these people being hung naked upside down on spikes, and these birds would come and pick away at their flesh. And if they fell down, they would be put back up there to all start again. And you see these demons down here. So this is hell. This is to scare the living daylights out of people. And so here in this original, you have two people here, and you can see the birds eating away at the flesh there. But here, we only have one person. I think that's significant. And we've got Timothy Ratliff here. And so this tree symbolizes karma. What you've done in the past is going to come back and bite you. And the size and the scale and the pain of the punishment will be in proportion to that. So this guy isn't hanging upside down yet. So maybe there's a chance for him to be redeemed. But in any case, there's some karmic retribution on Jason Isaacs or Timothy Ratliff in the story. Now here we've zoomed into that original image. Remember we saw the Sala and we have Lisa. So I'm guessing this character is Lisa. And something's going on here. Lisa, let's say, holding the umbrella. It's originally come from this image here, and she's been flipped around. And interesting, the white lotus has been actually taken out. Well, I don't know if it's a lotus, but the white flower's been taken out of her ear here, and she's facing the other way. So I'm suspecting that maybe this is an affair or a relationship that she's having with somebody else there. Now we got Michelle Monaghan. So she was the alpha within those three friends. This is really interesting. Have a look at this. Now, in the original from Watsuwanaram, you can see out here, you can still see the jungle and everything, and there's some reds out here. But in the White Lotus version, it's all black out here. And she's sitting up there alone, and she is topless. That's really interesting. At first, we saw one that was showing Kate, maybe was the spy looking down from some kind of tower. But here we have Michelle Monaghan, but she's not surrounded by her friends. And she's sitting out there with her breast showing, looking into the darkness. Maybe she's looking into death. Maybe she's got breast cancer. I don't know what's going on. But just piecing it together, why is she looking into darkness, sitting naked? And they've obviously chosen this image for a reason, that she's sort of naked, unless she's got some kind of lover coming out from out there. But the fact that it's dark, I'm suspecting that maybe she's looking at death and she's all alone. Now, this image here, remember, we've got the pond. The pond represents refuge from all the chaos, and it's all of these blues. So this is still quite good, but it's still in the wilderness. So you've got animals there. You can see you've got bulls or buffaloes, and we have the lotuses here. And the original had this white lotus coming up from the ground, and I think you can see that same flower here. So this image is another composite image with these colors montaged in together to give this feeling of harmony, but it's outside of the walls of the White Lotus or the palace. We have Sam Nivola or Lachlan Ratliff there, and this is the dead character. So maybe it's Lachlan who's the dead guy that floats by in the first scene of the first episode. And again, we have the pond here. So lotuses here are the final attainment of enlightenment. So maybe death is reaching that point. And then you can see the shoreline here, but that's taken from this image, which is almost like the lines of heaven. So maybe that's representing that he has died. He's reached that point of finally being separated from this craziness, and he's about to go across into the thresholds of heaven. Now, again, we have this image here. Have a look. Is Kun Sitala, and she's represented obviously by this person here. And I mentioned that she's looking at this Kinari, maybe thinking about her younger self, her younger beauty. And that image is taken from an image in Watsutat. And then you also have the Kinari, which is like this image here. It's almost, I think it's this one sort of flipped around. One thing I wanted to mention, anyone in Thailand knows Kun Kamala Sukoson. And I need to say it here. The character of Kun Lek as Kun Sitala in this, as the owner of the White Lotus, there are so many similarities to Kun Kamala Sukoson. She's a huge, larger-than-life character. She's a singer. She's an entertainer. She's married to an American. She owns hotels. the similarities here are crazy between Kun Lek and Kun Kamala. So it's really interesting watching Kun Sitala in the story play out. It'll be interesting to see what happens eventually. Even look at this image here. It almost looks like Kun Kamala and her beauty in the day. So we'll wait and see. And then on the other side of the pond, we see these monkeys. And I said, it looks like they've got an e-cigarette here, but have a look. They're actually, this is the original, and the monkeys have a pipe. It's almost like a bong, or maybe they're smoking opium. And so monkeys are not inherently bad. If you have a look at the Ramayana, the Ramakien, they just represent the general people. And so when they're fighting, the monkeys are the general troops. And you've got good ones and bad ones. They're just people that have to be rounded up and work together for the greater good if they can. But you're going to have the infighting. But these drugs are basically sort of taking them out of the scene. And it's very interesting then that you have Victoria Ratliff, which is the wife, played by Parker Posey, and she's here. So maybe there's this connection, being in an altered state of mind and being separated from everything. And she's slightly in the darkness outside of the White Lotus or the palace. And this safe place of refuge of the lotus pond is actually next to her. She's on the outskirts of it, which is interesting because if you have a look at this original, the monkeys are actually, looks like within the city. So I think there's significance to that. Now, look at this. We have the original here. We've got the lotus pond. It looks like the White Lotus is on this side and the crocodile. Here in this original image from Watsutat, the crocodile's on the other side. This crocodile looks even more menacing than this, a little bit bigger, but it's lurking within the lotus pond, which is usually a place of refuge. We have what looks like, I guess, kind of like a swan or a crane. This is the original image from Watsutat, and we have Belinda Lindsay or Natasha Rothwell here as this character, and she's looking in at her reflection here. Here you don't see the reflection from this crane here, but she definitely does here. So maybe she's looking at the beauty of her own reflection, or maybe looking at almost like an altered version of who she is or what she could be. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to roll out. I think there's significance that though she's come back into this third season from the first season. So let's see what happens. Okay, it's starting to get dark. Look at this image up the back. We see these ships from the west. They're sort of coming in. And then this image from Watsuwan, which we see this landscape image. But here in the White Lotus version, we see a shadow being cast across. So it's starting to get dark. And down the bottom here, we see these ladies running away. And up top, we see serpents coming down. Now, the serpent could be good if you have a look at the Buddhidata Jataka, where the serpent is actually trying to be good and find enlightenment. However, serpents also have poison, they could be vipers, and so they could be bad. And definitely within Western thinking, serpents are generally bad. So maybe this was a Western mind also looking at this. But this image is starting to come into it of these women in the darkness running away, scared from something. There you go. And you see it zoomed in. And you also have this original image. And you see up here, remember we saw in the beginning, you have this leopard, which is like a beast in the wild, eating a deer, and these other dogs are preying. That's actually come from this image. So it's all starting to come together, that the things that were lurking outside of the White Lotus are now pouncing, starting to kill and terrorizing the people from within. And there are things or dangers all over the place. You see these snakes, as well as these people in the woods ready to attack. Now we have Patrick Schwarzenegger brought in, and so maybe he is the person, almost looks like he's stalking, ready to attack. And you can see these snakes hanging down here, and these like goddesses up there just looking at everything that's going on. I think up top you may even have Kinari just watching everything going on there as all hell starts to break loose down below. Now we have Kun Tem or Kaitok, which is the person that looks like will be the love interest of Lisa, and he's there to fight the wild animals in the jungle. I guess he may be the hero in the end. This is interesting. So we have Chelsea or Amy Lou Wood. So she's the girlfriend that's come in and not really knowing what her boyfriend's up to, and he's obviously a bad guy. Maybe she is this deer that is being eaten by the tiger. Let's wait and see, but it looks like whatever it is, she is in danger. Have a look at this. So we have these two original images from Wat Sutat of the monkeys all going in this direction. Here, the monkeys have been made kind of lighter and they're running in the other direction and they're superimposed on each other, or they're sort of placed together as a composite image. Remember, monkeys usually represent the troops or the masses of the village. They're not bad, they're just the troops ready to fight. However, we have a common theme of monkeys from season 1 in Hawaii, from season 2 in Sicily, and now season 3 in Thailand. So maybe the monkeys in the Western mind are the bad thing. And here it's really interesting because we see the monkeys scaling the tower and they've got very menacing looks on their faces, but somebody's hanging a snake down trying to ward the monkeys off. But look at the original here from Wat Sutat. They're not monkeys. They're people climbing up, which is strange because you do have monkey troops in the Ramayana or Ramakien. But here, this very image, they've swapped out the humans for the monkeys, even if these are the enemies or they're trying to escape. And up here, you've got these guys in the tower who are basically trying to escape and maybe looking up at the gods, trying to reach heaven. But if we have a look up here, that's the ladies up top who have all escaped and there's just darkness outside. So rather than heaven looking down, you've just got pitch black darkness, almost despair, as these menacing monkeys are climbing up. So they've taken this and really flipped it around. And you can see the serpent here, I've put in here. These serpents are also dangling down. So I think this image of a dangling serpent may have been inspired from this image here. Did the Westerner understand the role of the serpent within these Jatakas or the Ramayana, Ramakien, or are they taking a Western mindset to the serpent as always a bad thing? Let's wait and see. And so now we see the battle. All hell is broken loose. The really interesting thing to note here, okay, you've got this soldier commanding the troops, but this here where it says Buaka, White Lotus, if you look at the original, it's nothing text, but it's representing maybe a foreign kingdom, but it definitely doesn't say Buaka, the White Lotus. So White Lotus have actually recreated this whole image, especially for the White Lotus. And you've got elephants, you've got everybody up top here. And here on the outside, almost of these sort of frames on the outside, you've got the giant fighting the crocodile. So one thing to notice in this image though, and in the White Lotus image, they've put a line through it. But if you look at the original, you've got the giant here, or the yak, actually grabbing this black guy's penis and pulling it out and handing it to the crocodile, probably to bite off. And so perhaps there's significance there as well. Will somebody literally have their penis handed to a crocodile, or is this a metaphor? Let's wait and see. And so again, we have from Wat Sutat, have a look here. The tattoos are two white lotuses. The original tattoos are not like that. It almost looks like a sakyan, which is like a mandala for protection. And they're chasing after fighting the enemy, or maybe they're the enemy, because if you have a look at the writing on his shoulder, again, they're not real letters. It could be Burmese, or it could be even the Kawi script, but it's an illegible script. So I'm not sure whether this original was a good or a bad guy, but if you have a look here, we can see the White Lotus. Obviously, it's somebody defending the White Lotus. And we see a zoomed in image of the guy ordering the troops here within the White Lotus. It's interesting to see this is almost one-to-one from this Wat Sutat image. However, there are a couple of differences. You've got these people taken out of the scene here behind him. Maybe that was just for aesthetic purposes. But then finally, you see Buaka and it's fallen. And there's one really interesting difference here. I'll give you 3 seconds to spot it. 1, 2, 3. In the original, there is no monkey. But here you have the monkey. Now, is this Hanuman? I'm suspecting maybe, and he's fighting. Hanuman, remember, is the hero, bravery. And so he's fighting maybe the enemy here. But if they didn't understand Hanuman, maybe they're taking the monkey as the bad person. And so maybe he's killing innocent people. I'm not sure what the take on this, but if you look at the traditional Thai operating system for your mind, if you see Hanuman fighting, Hanuman's the good guy defending what would be here the White Lotus, Buaka. Go back and have a look at my clip from last week to understand that. And so here you've got this battle royale, and it's pretty much a one-to-one image from Wat Sutat, except again, there's one difference again. Have a look at this guy falling over the edge here. Here there is a monkey there, and here it doesn't look like Hanuman, so maybe this is one of the troops that have come in. However, again, if you're taking a Western point of view of the monkey, maybe the monkey's bad and he's attacking, but there's definitely significance because the original does not have a monkey. There is a monkey here. And we have this scene. Now, generally, when we see Westerners coming in, it's almost like Westerners approaching Asia and they're coming into hell because they don't know what they're getting into and they're going to be destroyed. So originally, these Westerners appearing in these murals, we've got at Wat Suwan, these images here, it's like they've come here and it's almost the enemy is coming in, not realizing that they're going to perish. And here in the original, you see the god up here looking down. That's not in here. But I suspect these are the foreigners coming to paradise and all of them are going to perish. And that's taken from these. And these guys can't bear to look into the storm. And then when it zooms in, you see this fire about to engulf them. The original one didn't have that, but this is almost like the dragon's fire that's coming down on them. And if I take a look at the next image here, yeah, you can see the dragon head. That's taken from this. It almost looks identical, except here there's fire coming out. So this could be the hapless foreigners that are coming to Asia thinking that they're going to find their riches or wealth or use it as their playground. And in the end, it ends up eating them up, literally eating them up here. And you can see some people are trying to escape. This is pretty much one-to-one here. It's been put in a composite image. Again, fish, sea serpents are seen as these treacherous perils that attacked people on the way to going to the dark side or to Tosakan's kingdom. And here they're trying to fight them off again. It's interesting that the original ones, they've got these hats on, but they've taken the hats off the guys with the white hair. Maybe there's significance there. And then these guys are trying to save him, but they can't save him, it would seem. I've put Mike White as the creator in here because it's really interesting that they've chosen him to put in juxtaposition with this image. Now, this is taken from here, but this is made much whiter, grayer, and you've got these shadows of the deity, the stupas over him again. So maybe he is the one who sort of floated out and found his redemption or his solace, his safety away from everything. So maybe the creator has actually woven himself into the White Lotus story. And you can see in the original image here, he's actually near the palace, near the kingdom, but here it looks like he's all alone at sea. And then finally we come back where everything is being brought back into harmony again. That was crazy. So thank you so much to all those people who reached out. Andrew, other people, you know who you are, and especially to the Facebook page Silapa Watanatam. You guys have done an amazing job putting these together, and for the White Lotus to be able to recreate these images, I really wonder how much depth of knowledge they have into all of these images. It'd be interesting to hear their breakdown of why they put these together, but maybe there are insights to the overall story in this. Don't forget, if you do want to lay down a Thai operating system for your mind, get a copy of Cracking Thai Fundamentals. You can click on the link below, or if you're not in Thailand, just order via Amazon. I'm Stuart J. Raj. I'll see you on the other side.